Today, Octave from the channel Podcastul de Filosofie and I are talking to author and philosopher Heather Widdows about her book, released in 2018, Perfect Me, Beauty as an Ethical Ideal. We've both enjoyed reading it recently, and it inspired us to start a discussion on both our channels about what the current beauty ideal means, what it demands from us, and how it shapes our daily practices and how we view ourselves, and even our worth sometimes. This book has been described as groundbreaking by Vogue and listed by The Atlantic as one of the best books of 2018. And yes, of course, we're excited to talk to the author about it. Unfortunately, the book hasn't been translated to Romanian yet, but who knows, maybe these kinds of talks will create more demand for it. This interview has two parts, one here and one on Octave's channel, and it doesn't matter in which order you decide to watch them because we're addressing different topics connected to beauty, our image-based culture, and even about how AI-generated women are now shaping beauty ideals by promoting hyper-perfectionism. As if the standards weren't high enough already, we had to make them unreal, not just unrealistic. But enough of my rant for now. Let's hear our chat.
I wanted to ask a question about Ozempic, because that is also one of the themes that I think the book just missed. Although it was, people were speaking about the obesity pill for a while now, but it hadn't become so mainstream. What do you think changes once being slim, or at least not being obese? Let's not go to the other extreme where you're very slim or whatever. What do you think changes when not being obese is not a moral quality of discipline and not going to McDonald's every single day, but it's just having enough money to do the Ozempic? Is it a pill or is it like a shot? It's a shot, right?
At the moment, it's mostly a shot, but there are pills on the very near horizon.
That's great. So what do you think changes with Ozempic from that point of view?
Well, we don't know. So it's a kind of, it's an empirical question that we sort of have to wait and see. But there are a number of possibles. So one is that thinness just becomes something that everybody can have, especially as it gets, presumably it will all get cheaper as it all, becomes generic. And it doesn't work for everybody. So there'll be a small percentage that can't use it to become thin. But if it becomes as available as statins that some doctors predict, then that thinness will no longer be a thing. Now, how long that takes for us to change because as young as 3, we make character judgments about bigger bodies and smaller bodies, attach things like in control, capable, lazy, has friends, right? As young as 3, psychologists will tell us that children attaching those qualities. So how long it takes our moral judgments to catch up with the reality, but one could imagine that thinness just becomes less important, and instead we start focusing more on some of the other features. So firmness, the right curves in the right places. So even when I was writing Perfect Me, I was talking about how thinness alone isn't enough. You need the ideal is this kind of mixed ideal where you need breasts and buttocks, but on a otherwise thin frame. So one way forward is that other features become more important. And another possible way forward is the kind of the sense that maybe we don't mind about it as much, right? So if everybody can be thin, it might be the case that some people would suggest that actually we start valuing bodies of different sizes because we again focus on other things. So some of the body positive movement has been quite interesting in how they've reacted to this. So I've been quite I'm quite critical of the body positive movement in that I don't really think that it is that. It's still very visual. It's often only about one feature. So I will talk about, if you look at the fat acceptance movements, they're nearly always still, curvy, often beautifully made up, often young. So, and if you look at the movements against body hair, they're often young and thin and otherwise fit, but only have the little. So there's all kinds of problems with the body positive movement as it stands. But one possibility might be if thinness is available to everybody, it just becomes something that we desire less and we focus on these other features. So one thing will be we'll all just become thin and then we'll focus on the other features. Another thing will be maybe thinness will matter less.
Using a critical language regarding these two categories is not I don't think it helps anyone. This is what I was trying to say. I don't think it helps because it's exactly, we go back to that shameful way of talking about people's decisions, and we don't know what's happening with them. Why are they doing this? If it helps them or not, even if it's not about health, even if it's just about, I don't know, how they want to perceive themselves. Maybe it does have a good impact on them. And we are just criticizing that. And for them, it's good. It's good that they just lost the weight, and that's it.
Right. So, I mean, I think when doctors are talking about using it like statins, they're thinking that this might be, one of the things that improves health dramatically. On the body positive, people have talked about Serena Williams, but also Lizzo and Oprah, and there's the sense that so much of that body positivity was reinforcing the importance of the beauty ideal rather than challenging it. Right, it's all about the body still, and as we've seen, people who can afford it are using it.
It's a lot of negativity in the body positivity movement. That's what I was trying to say.
Right. It is, and it's kind of, some of that was always there. So, talking to school children, in many ways, the body positive movement just put on them a kind of another expectation. So they already felt bad that they didn't have what they felt to be the right bodies, and then they felt awful, and that they felt they couldn't say that they were unhappy with that. So I think that kind of, so for some people, the body positive movement was wonderful and really helped them, and that's fine. We all manage the beauty ideal in whatever way we can, but for others, it was really, it really made people more shameful and more quiet. And I think what we're seeing here is some of the myths collapsing, that for very many people, it was a way to cope with a body that they weren't happy with, rather than a way to actually be happy. And the other thing about what you said is that, Ozempic, similarly to anything else, right? I think so much of what people are doing in the gym when they say it's about health is about appearance. And we just need to take away these judgments. Whatever individuals do or don't do to their own bodies, on you go. Nobody gets any judgment from me. The only thing that I say is, there's this very small number of cosmetic procedures that I think are really risky, that I really would like to, advertise that how risky some of these procedures are, so that people know that because we don't talk about it, and we don't talk about it in kind of accurate ways. All cosmetic surgery gets lumped together, and it's very, very different, right? If my daughter wanted to have a breast implant, that would be very different from her wanting to have buttock implants. And I think we need to be a bit more clear about what is really dangerous. There's a difference between smoking and vaping. Right? We are clear about those things, and we just need to be a bit clearer on very many of these things. Similarly, things like Botox. If you're getting Botox by a medical practitioner that knows what they're doing, it is absolutely not risky, and so on.
Yeah, I think we need to... Sorry, I just wanted to say something about that advertising. That advertising in itself, it's something that we need to regulate better, because they are promising all sorts of things that are not delivering, or simply avoiding talking about serious risks. And that I think it's something that could work if we would look into advertising and what it does.
Right. Yeah. So one thing I talk about to my students is, like, could you imagine if when you went onto your cosmetic surgery website, instead of all the positive stories, and nearly always it's psychological stories. So, the website I talk a lot about in the book is the MYI group, which is Make Yourself Amazing.
Yeah.
And then so much of it is about, your breast implants will give you confidence, and you'll be able to, overcome all these traumas. And if we kept our advertising more accurate, your breast implants will give you fuller boobs, bigger boobs, but they'll be harder. And then these will be the other things. Yeah, absolutely. What we advertise for is a better life, not a changing body part. Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to go slightly in a different direction. Hopefully this ties on to the rest of the discussion, but I also read the book as a parent. I have never been a parent before. So I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I'm just picking up tips and tricks from everywhere. I was wondering, what exactly would be a strategic approach as a parent, especially to my 4-year-old daughter, to make sure, if I were to formulate my goal, it would be this. I want her to be seeing through the bullshit. I don't want her to be completely on this side or completely on that side or completely this or completely that. That's, I don't know, that will grow naturally, organically, and she will have to decide. I just want her to be able to see through the bullshit, a bit like you talked of the website that is full of bullshit and you have to see through it to go through the tinier text. How do you do that as a parent, in general, or as a parent of girls in particular?
Right, so I wish I had the answer to that question, not least that I have a daughter who's nearly 18, and we don't have very good answers to this, partly because we haven't taken it seriously. So very many of the initiatives that we've put in place haven't been well researched and well evaluated. So just to give one example, partly because academics were so bad at taking this seriously, as body image has become more of an issue in schools and in policy, all kinds of interventions have been tried, most of which make it worse. So one example I gave was the kind of body positivity, telling people all bodies are great, and that they should just love their bodies, whatever size and shape. Right? They know that just silences. We've also seen more recently that certainly in the UK, we've put in place lots of digital literacy in schools, and the thought was, oh well, if people understand that the images are not real, then they will stop aspiring to them. Right, completely counterintuitively, it turns out that the opposite is true. So the more that you know how the images are faked, the more unreal the image is, the more you aspire to it. So in fact, if you label images and say, you know, this model's legs have been lengthened and the cellulite's removed, you won't think, oh, well, my chunky and bumpy legs, they're doing fine then. You'll actually want that perfect model's unreal legs more than ever, and that will feature into your ideal. So it doesn't answer your question in terms of what we should do, but what we need to start doing is recognizing exactly where the truth lies and start evaluating interventions. So some interventions are likely to be around advertising. Other interventions are likely to be around how we talk about appearance. For instance, so I've got a colleague who works on lookism, Andrew Mason, who thinks that we should talk about lookism along the lines of a protected characteristic, just so that employers have to think about whether or not that's factoring into their decisions when they make it, and so on and so on. So in terms of what you know, your daughter and what you do, you do what the psychologists say, which is make sure that appearance is only one. You don't ignore appearance, but it's only one piece of the identity pie, and it needs not to be a very big one. So, you know, very classically, and psychologists have been talking about this about decades. But also, we have to recognise that they're growing up in this incredibly appearance-orientated world, and I think that to try and deny that, or to tell them it's not important, or to tell your 15-year-old that they can't go on Instagram, is to deny them a peer group and a community as well. So I think that these are collective things, that there's very little we can do individually other than be really open and be as communicative as possible about how much this matters, even if we wish it didn't.
And kind, I think, because, and I like the fact that you talk about this. And another thing that I wanted to say is that I love the fact that you talk in the book about how ethically loaded our language is. And maybe this can be also something that we can all do even if we don't have daughters. Be careful about how we use language when we talk about beauty, because we instinctively do that. I mean, I know for myself, if I don't go to the gym, I'm a bad person. Having, I don't know, cheat days in your diet or in your cheat meals or stuff like that. And this is something I've started doing with my friends, with my best friend, for instance. I do this a lot. When I hear her talk about having a cheat day, I say, no, it's not a cheat day, it's just a meal. And she does the same way with me, because it just rewires our brain a little bit to talk not so ethically loaded about decisions that are not ethically loaded. They're just things you do in your day. So yeah, this is, if you have other examples, of course you can give us about ethically loaded language. I'm sure you do. But I wanted to thank you about this, because this helped me. This actually gave me a tool.
That's lovely. That's really, I mean, and the other thing that I always say to women is that, you know, some people say, oh, never comment on anybody else's appearance. I'm like, well, that's not I find that not practical. So you just recognize that when you're commenting, it's probably not what it seems. So often when you say to somebody, oh, I love your shoes, or I love your coat, you often reach out and touch them, and you're really saying, oh, I love you, you're my friend. I'm celebrating that you look amazing.
Yeah.
It's you. Right? So I think, recognizing that a lot of beauty talk in our society is other kinds of talk, is friendship talk. And then I also have this Everyday Lookism campaign about trying to stop people saying negative things about other people's bodies, irrespective of the intention. So psychologists will tell us that very many people, when they, will trace their wish to have cosmetic surgery, whether it's to change a crooked nose or something that they can't bear to live with because they think that it's not normal, even when often to other people they can't really see anything particularly unusual. It often goes back to a particular comment. So the more we can change how we talk to other people about their bodies, I think if we could take some of the shaming away, make it more unacceptable in the way that we often treat comments about bodies as like we treat appearance as fairly trivial, whereas in fact, if beauty is an ethical ideal, they are some of the most important comments. So bullying charities, and I've worked quite a lot with the Anti-Bullying Alliance, appearance bullying is the most prevalent and the most deep-cutting of all bullying, more so than gendered bullying or racial bullying and so on, and yet it's the one that schools do little about, and it's because they don't know how to do it. So I've actually done the first module about appearance bullying with the Anti-Bullying Alliance, and it's had massive take-up from schools, and it's just because the material's not there. People are taught this is unimportant, and actually if you look at some of the stories on the Everyday Lookism site, it's extraordinary. People teased about hair colour, about facial hair, about acne, obviously about weight, but you can be shamed for anything. You can be shamed for wearing too much makeup, for wearing too little makeup, for the colours of clothes you wore. There's one story on there that stuck with me about this little girl on her first day at school. She didn't understand why, there's a group of boys going behind warming their hands, and eventually she realised it was her red hair, and it's like, oh my goodness, and that's the thing that defined her, and so on.
Yeah, it's pretty scary because you don't really have a lot of control over it. I think that's what I noticed. So she's there. She's 4. She just started now, and she's there for like 6-7 hours. And then if she goes to after school, probably more. And there's not that much you can do with regard to what is happening during that time. But of course, there's a lot you can do at home. I would like to move a bit towards the final stage of the interview. For me, the last question would be, what are your plans for the future on this topic? Hopefully, there's a monograph coming soon, but no pressure, no pressure. How do you move from the situation nowadays, post-pandemic, super TikTok, super Instagram? Where do we go from here?
So I took a little time out from philosophy. Sadly, I had to do a little bit of university management, but there is another book coming. So I'm now back full time as a job in philosopher. So the next book is called, it won't surprise you, it's called Selfie Culture. And I'm exploring the way that as we move into a visual and virtual world, that move into that world post-pandemic, coupled with appearance becoming, and I'm arguing, the most important value, so a further step from perfect me, is impacting in all kinds of places that we wouldn't think it would impact. So it's obviously impacting on young girls in social media, but I'm also going down the rabbit warren of the manosphere and incel culture, and arguing that actually if we didn't value appearance, this culture couldn't have emerged. And actually it's tackling the fact that appearance is our most dominant value that is going to resolve very many of these toxic ways in which we're allowing our children to be brought up in a mass global experiment. So following very much from Perfect Me, but saying that actually this isn't just, it's not just changing the way that very many people are valuing, it's reshaping our society. And many of the things that we're worrying about are actually symptoms of this. And it won't help us if we just focus on social media, or if we just talk about surveillance culture. We have to think about it's our bodies and our selves and identities are connected and valued.
Sounds very, very cool. I'm looking forward to that book.
I'm
I think
also
Alexandra as well.
Of course, because first of all, because you're talking about the manosphere and the fact that you're talking about what makes it possible. Because as you were saying, I don't think it works if you're just saying, oh, these people are doing bad stuff and let's just stop that. It's not going to work. I mean, we need to understand why these kinds of phenomena appear. And then because you're talking more about the virtual culture, because my last question was about, and I'm curious to see if there is anything in the book about this, about AI and about the fact that AI recently has started to create even, I don't know, beauty pageant AIs, AI models even that we all see. And what I've noticed is that of course, we look at these, we were talking before this about unrealistic beauty ideals, but this is not just an unrealistic beauty ideal, it's an unreal beauty ideal. I mean, that doesn't exist and it still impacts us. And this is so interesting because it shows us how powerful images are and how unaware are we about how powerful they are. Because you look at an AI model, you know it's an AI model and that person doesn't exist. But the next time you are looking in the mirror, you are going to compare yourself to that image. And I was just wondering if there's anything about AI going on there. I'm really interested in AI myself, about all sorts of topics, how it impacts creativity and other things. And if there is anything at all regarding this, or I don't know, in your future projects.
There is. So,
oh my God.
So on the Unreal, there's more stuff actually about the way that our own doctored selfies are influencing us. So what we find is cosmetic surgeons, we used to take pictures of celebrities. We're now taking our own completely rejigged, remastered selfies, as if that's possible. And then I've got a chapter about retreat from the real, which includes the way that we shape our avatars in games like Second Life, right, where you can buy luminosity that you have to turn off when you go into a dark room, and you can buy thigh gaps and you can buy boobs that jiggle on our avatars. And then, of course, as you've just said, the most extreme, they're not connected to us at all, are they AI models? And in a way, following some of the anime in terms of, the things that we are asking surgeons to do to us are things that would mean our heads fall off and that our ankles can't support us. But yet, nonetheless, are the ideals that are finding their way into our ideal self. And part of the claim, the third argument in selfie culture, is about the way that images bypass our ability to know that knowing things are unreal does absolutely nothing. And if that's true, it might have bigger applications in other contexts, like political contexts. When people see the picture of the politician the Pope in the puffer jacket, or Kamala Harris in the Communist Party, right? It doesn't matter that then they find out it's not true, because they go, oh well, no, but that's the kind of thing that
they would do. Yeah. Exactly. I'm so excited about this. I'm looking forward to reading your next book. And
I'm looking forward to finishing it.
Yes. Well, welcome back into the writing game.
Thank you. I've missed it very much.
Yeah, it is. It has its it's a love-hate relationship, at least for me. Writing is also grinding, and it's like eating at you while you do it, but it's also so fulfilling. So it's like, I want to do it, but it's a struggle, but I want to do it, but it's a struggle, so on and so forth. Heather, thank you very much. And I hope we could see each other one more time after the book comes out and we rediscuss these new issues in more detail. And I think I speak also in the name of Alexandra when I say that this was very, very fun to start with, but also very informative.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much. Bye.
Thank you.